I appreciate you all taking the time out to join us this evening. I'd like to open up by thanking Coach Pierce, LP, and his wife, Melissa, for everything they've done for the Atlanta Hawks organization and really the city of Atlanta over the last 2.5 years. Anytime you make these decisions, they're never easy and they're very difficult. But we felt like for the Atlanta Hawks to move forward and to accomplish what we set out to do this season, it was the right time to make this move. Again, not easy and certainly difficult, but I want to open it up to you guys with that.
All right, thank you, Travis. We will get into Q&A with the first question coming from Chris Kirshner.
Why did you decide that now, instead of letting these final 2 games play out, was the right time instead of waiting until the All-Star break?
Well, as I said, there's never a perfect time for this, right? Whether it be yesterday, whether it be tomorrow, whether it be today. But the one thing that we felt is once we made the decision, we thought it best just to move forward. If the decision had been made, we didn't think that it made a lot of sense to wait 48 hours to do it.
Sarah Spencer.
Hey, Travis. I know you said this is just kind of the best thing for the organization, but were there any deciding factors, anything specific you could point to that wasn't quite up to expectations?
Well, as we said at the beginning of the season, our goal was to have progress this year, to move forward. And we just felt like that wasn't happening as quickly as we wanted it to. Again, these are not easy decisions. These are real life decisions that affect, multiple families, and they're not easy. But we felt like for the organization, it was the best thing for us to do moving forward.
If I could ask a follow-up, just how much confidence do you have in Nate McMillan stepping up as interim coach?
I think Nate's resume speaks for itself. I have a ton of confidence in Coach McMillan moving forward.
Zach Klein.
I got a quick follow-up on Sarah's question. Does Nate get any more contract years or dollars for doing this?
We don't disclose our employment agreements.
And the second question is, you guys have, I think, the second most games lost to injury this year. Argument can be made that Coach Pierce, Travis didn't have a full complement of players. How could you assess what he's done, knowing that the pieces you built him during the offseason were never at his disposal?
Yeah, no question. We certainly had our share of injuries. We just made the decision. We felt like we needed a new voice moving forward for the second half of the season to give us the best opportunity to get where we wanted to go.
Alex Glaze.
Hey, Travis, just curious, you're saying we a lot. Just who was involved in the decision making, and I guess what were the discussions?
Yeah, well, every decision I make is a collective decision with my front office. I'm not a man sitting in my office by myself with the doors closed. So, I have a whole group in the front office, whether it's during the draft or free agency or decisions like this. So it's the folks in my front office.
And just as a follow-up, I guess, to that, were there any players involved, or did you pick any brains to kind of see what they thought about that? Because it seems like, people like Lloyd. Just wondering if you picked any brains.
Yeah, no, certainly didn't go around to each player asking their opinion on stuff, but I certainly am around the team, especially this year with the COVID situation. I've been with the team all year long. So, feel like I have a pulse on the team.
Jeff Schultz.
Travis, hirings and firings usually are ultimately the owner's decision. So if we can assume here that this ultimately was the owner's decision, when was that decision made exactly? And can you say why Tony is not on this phone call?
Well, as I said, this was a decision made by myself and my basketball operations staff. Certainly, Tony, signs off on all major moves we make on the basketball side or on the business side, as far as that goes. But this wasn't a decision that Tony made.
And when
Sherrod
exactly,
Blakely. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, when exactly was the decision made?
We came to the decision earlier this morning.
Is there any
Sherrod.
reason why I'm sorry. Is there any reason why you guys allowed your coach to go ahead and?
Yeah, listen, as I said, there's never a good time. By the time that, we got to practice and everything done, I just waited till we got back to the hotel and I sat down with LP.
Sherrod.
Okay, thank you. Travis, you had mentioned earlier about Nate's resume and how it speaks for itself. How much did that play a role in the decision, being comfortable making this decision, knowing that in all likelihood you'd be handing the reins over to Nate?
Well, so when we made the decision, we weren't 100% certain that, we'd be handed over to Nate. Listen, I 2.5 years ago, hired LP, and I hope that we'd be together for a long time, and certainly wanted it to work out. And when Nate joined us last year, certainly didn't envision being in the situation we are today. But I guess to answer your question, it is, I suppose, a comfort knowing that we have an experienced head coach, to answer your question.
And along those same lines, with Nate taking over on an interim basis, and you had mentioned that, contractual stuff, that's private, I get that. But were there some basketball concerns that you had to address with Nate to make him feel comfortable taking over this job interim? And if so, what were some of those basketball concerns, if he had any?
Not really. To be completely frank with you, Nate and I, we didn't speak a whole lot. This afternoon after we got back from practice, and I sat down with Coach Pierce, and we talked. He wanted to speak to his coaches, and I told him our hope was that Coach McMillan would take the job, but he wanted to speak with him first, and I respected that. And then I talked to Coach McMillan. So there wasn't a lot of concerns on his end by the time we spoke. He was aware of the situation.
Okay. Thanks.
Charles Odom.
Revisiting, you saying you acknowledge obviously that there's been a significant number of injuries this year. Looking past that, can you say, was there one thing that concerned you about the lack of progress with Coach Pierce, and specifically did the losing fourth quarter leads on a consistent basis? Is that something that led to this decision?
No, listen, I think we try to take a much broader picture as opposed to looking down to the micro stuff like that. My job is to take a macro view of the whole situation. And we just felt like at this time, to be able to move forward to where we want to go, this was the right decision for us.
Eric Jackson.
Hey, Travis. I know you said this was a group decision, but what has the conversation been like between you and Tony just leading up to today's announcement? Obviously, he's supportive, but wondering if you could share a glimpse into the direction of the franchise from his point of view.
Well, I don't think it's any secret. Tony is very passionate and wants the organization to be successful. And he's willing to give us all the resources that we need to be able to do that. And up until this point, in my tenure here, he's been extremely supportive of any decision I feel like we needed to make. And this was the same situation here.
Thanks.
Terrell Thomas.
Hey, Travis, a two-part question. Have you had a chance this evening since the departure of Coach Pierce to speak to any of the players? Have any of the players reached out to you? And what will you be looking for? Do you have any hope that Coach McMillan will take the job on full term and remove the interim tag?
Yeah, so we were able to reach out to all the guys on the team between myself and the staff, and then I saw some of them here at the hotel. And we plan obviously to meet with them tomorrow with the group. Obviously, been busy returning texts to a lot of you guys and a lot of other people around the league, as you can imagine. And then as far as the interim tag, listen, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I have the utmost confidence in Coach McMillan, but let's go ahead and get through the first few weeks here, and then we'll worry about that once we get there.
Thank you.
Jared Weiss.
A lot of franchises, when they go through a rebuild, they want to bring in a coach that they know will be able to develop the young talent as it's coming in. Do you feel like at this point that you're at a transition where you want to look for in your next head coach that becomes a permanent head coach, someone that can really turn this and build the winning habits and turn this into a winning club and that has experience in winning?
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of an open-ended question there, Jared. Listen, right now, we feel like Coach McMillan's going to give us the best chance for the goal we set out for this year, which is to get into the expanded playoff picture.
Fred Khalil.
Yeah, Travis, how tough is it for you to have to fire the guy that you hired that you thought was going to be the guy of the future here?
Yeah, listen, I don't know if you guys in your jobs ever have to let people go. I've been fortunate or unfortunate enough, however you look at it, to be in a position to have to fire people in the past. And I can tell you it's an extremely difficult thing because you're not talking about one person, you're talking about their family. And a situation when you start talking about coaches, you're talking about their assistant coaches, you're talking about their video staff. So, a decision like this, I certainly don't take lightly. I've been in the NBA for a long time and fortunately been in a position to be able to do this. And these are not decisions that I take lightly at all. These decisions affect families and multiple families.
Thank you.
Gary Washburn.
Hey, Travis, this was your first coaching hire, has been mentioned, and you hired a first-time head coach. Was there something that didn't develop that you wanted to develop in terms of a coaching style or the command, or did something kind of drop off over time? Like, how did kind of the culture, how did the culture form, and did it form in the way you wanted it to form, or was there something that you said, okay, things just never developed?
Yeah, listen, these decisions, they're difficult, man. You're there every day, you're watching, you're evaluating, and it just felt like we needed a new voice to take that next step. And like I said, there's never a good time to make that change. But just the sense that I had with my staff who, are around every day, it felt like we needed to make that change so we could make that next step. And I know that's probably vague, but I mean, that's honestly the truth.
Dan Matthews.
Travis, to kind of go off of that too, I mean, how much of this is on the guys who have been here, like Trey, John, and others that you drafted, but also too, I mean, players that you brought in this season to hopefully be able to put you over the top and get into the postseason?
Yeah, listen, I don't think that you would go down any person on our roster right now, and if they were being honest with you, they'd tell you that they've overproduced or had a great season. I think when you go down the line, like that's starts with me, right? Like I'm at the top, so that starts with me. But I think if you would have an honest conversation with all our players, they would tell you the same. Like we haven't lived up to expectations on where we thought we'd be as a team. And I think if you ask them individually, they're not happy with the way they performed. It's unfortunate, but I think that's the truth as well.
Thank you.
Chris Vivilamore.
Travis, the fourth quarter issues have been well documented, and I'm wondering, when push comes to shove, is that kind of what you were looking at to see the failings on where this team could get better?
I'm not going to say that was the ultimate reason. I mean, certainly, obviously, in this business, it all comes down to wins and losses, right? And that's when the fourth quarter matters. So from that aspect, it certainly is a factor, but I don't think that that's the sole reason. I just feel like for us to be able to accomplish what we set out to do this year, that this was the right time to make this decision.
Kevin Taylor.
Hi, Travis. Just a couple of questions right quick. Number one, going into the game tomorrow, are there going to be any other meetings between you as management, Nate McMillan, the players, and so forth before the game?
Yeah, Coach McMillan and I will sit down tomorrow morning with the players for our first official meeting with them. Like I mentioned earlier, we've spoken with all of them this evening, but we'll have our first full team meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay, and then the second question I had is, you talked about how difficult of a decision this is from a coaching standpoint, a team standpoint, but Lloyd Pierce has been your friend. And of course, we all know he was your first hire, but just talk about from an emotional standpoint that this has been difficult for you by him being your friend.
Yeah, listen, like I said, it's certainly not an easy decision, and certainly not one that I took lightly. So it's been a taxing day.
Thanks.
Alec McQuaid.
Hey, Travis, you keep mentioning that you were hoping to get a new voice for these players. When Nate took over earlier in the season, did you notice the players react in a different way for those couple of games that he was in charge?
I mean, it was such a small sample size, right? 3 games. So it's tough to really say. I think in regards to Nate, what I would say is that, he has that presence about him. He has that experience about him. So we have the confidence that, he'll be able to hopefully bring that out of our guys with his own presence, with his own confidence. But I think it would be pretty, I don't know what the right word is, but I don't know that you can say that you get a good read on a person just from watching him coach 3 games, I guess.
To follow up on that, did you pick up on anything? I know you just said small sample size, but was there something that stuck out to you?
No, just his general presence during the game. I mean, obviously, I've seen Coach McMillan coach all the way back to when he's in the Supersonics, and I was in Golden State and I coached against him. So, obviously, I have a ton of respect for him as a person. I have a ton of respect for his ability his humility that he has on the sideline, and just his ability to create a sense of calm with the guys. I think which the hope would be that that passes on to our guys, and to not get rattled, and just to be calm out there and during the game. That's one of the things he preaches is stay calm, stay calm.
Chris Kirschner.
How challenging has it been for yourself to evaluate the meaningful progress that you guys wanted to make this season with the amount of significant injuries you guys have had?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it's certainly been an issue. We're not going to sit here and blame the injuries for where we are, but as we approach the trade deadline here in 24 days, it certainly makes it a little more difficult as we go into it, not ever having had a game this year. I think where we've been at full strength, with all the guys we signed this summer, So it makes it a little more challenging, but we're not going to sit here and blame the injuries for where we are either.
In a follow-up, I mean, the past 2 seasons that Lloyd has coached, I mean, obviously you guys were in rebuilding mode, and this year was the first year where there were, expectations to meet the playoffs. Do you feel like ultimately 34 games of, a season where there's expectations is enough to evaluate the job Lloyd has done?
Well, as I mentioned, when you make these decisions, man, there really isn't. There is no good time, no good place. But once you make that decision, I just feel like you owe it to everyone to go through with it, and that's what we did.
Sarah.
Travis, obviously this is a crazy season in general, and now you have a kind of coaching shift. What gives you confidence that you guys still can get into the playoffs or the play-in tournament or whatever it may be?
Well, I think the fact that we have 38 games left and we're 3 games out of 6th or 5th right now. So we have
yeah, you're 11th right now.
Yeah, but we're 3 games out of 6th or 5th. Is that correct in the standings? So the point being, we have a ton of basketball to play, and we're still right there. It's not like we're 10 games out of the playoffs or anything like that. We're a couple games out. So you have one good week and you're right back into it.
Zach Klein.
You set up my next question, Travis, because you are only 3 games out of the 5 seed. There are nearly 40 games left. What's the downfall of waiting and making this decision at the end of the year when over this next 3-4 weeks, the goal is to get to the playoffs? Your guys will be coming healthy. Why not just wait?
Well, as I mentioned, I think as soon as you come to the rationale that, it's time to make a change, I just think it's clean and better for everyone involved to make that change.
I think we've got 3 more. First from Jeff Schultz.
Travis, unless I missed it, you've said, once you come to that decision, make that rationale, you just go ahead and make the change. But I don't know if you've really specifically said how you reached that conclusion yet. If with all the guys not being in the lineup.
Yeah, no, I think, Jeff, the big thing is just judging how we felt things were going. From where we started, and then we had the injuries, and then just kind of the trajectory on, we felt like we needed to have some sort of change to change the trajectory, if that makes sense.
And then the other thing is, again, unless I missed it, what was Lloyd's reaction? I mean, I know the other day when he spoke, in some ways there was some sense of inevitability maybe, but obviously he had just come back from a practice today. And
yeah, I mean, I won't go into great detail about my private conversation with him, but I will tell you that he handled it as about as honorably and gracefully as you would imagine.
Thanks.
We will go to Alex Glaze.
Hey, Travis, just now that the decision has been made and, you've laid out goals for this season pretty clearly, just what kind of pressure do you feel now to reach that? Because, I mean, you made the big decision and now it's like it's on you. How much pressure are you feeling now?
Listen, man, anytime you take my job or coaching job in any professional sport, like there's pressure as soon as you take the job. That just comes with the territory. So it doesn't really matter what day of the week it is, whether it's game 1 or game 82, you feel pressure. Trust me. Your kids come home and tell you that the other kids in the school are talking about you. That's when you feel the pressure.
I guess, do you feel any more now than the general, now that you've, laid it out?
No, listen, I don't. Like I said, this has been a rough day, just because of everything that's taken place in my relationship with Coach Pierce. But the pressure that I have from the start of the season to today, it has not changed. It's the same pressure.
final question from Tanitra Batiste.
Hey, Travis. When Nate McMillan took over as acting head coach, one of the things that Solomon Hill said was that Nate was built for this. And just after the game against the Pacers, Cam Reddish talked about the phenomenal preparation that Nate had for them. Did any one of the players specifically have any reaction or any comments or share anything when you shared with them the change from Lloyd Pierce to Nate McMillan today?
No, I wouldn't say that they, I think most of them were taken back. I don't think they expected to get that phone call. Like I said, it's one of those things. I'm sure that, like most of you guys, it wasn't something that anyone expected to hear this afternoon, I guess.
Thank you.
Travis, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.